with the different types of Hajj. There are different types of Hajj out there. So in general, can you just explain to us what are the different types of Hajj?
Bismillah. What I'd like to say is that when you said, and this is what happened to me quite a few years ago, and they said, what type of Hajj are you going to make? I said, I thought Hajj was Hajj. What do you mean types of Hajj? There's only one Hajj. They said, no, there is one Hajj, but there's different ways that you can perform the Hajj.
Yeah.
I said, subhanAllah, I didn't know that. So maybe the viewers are hearing, similarly my reaction is, I thought there was only one Hajj. There is only one Hajj. However, there are different ways to perform the Hajj. In fact, there are three. Quite simply, there is something called Hajj al-Ifrad. Hajj al-Ifrad means to perform the Hajj alone. That's it, you're just performing the rites of Hajj. The second one you have is called Hajj al-Qiran. Well, that means that you're going to perform Umrah with the Hajj. The third Hajj is called Hajj al-Tamattu', which is also Hajj with Umrah. Now you're thinking, that's the same as the one previous. So what is the difference between Qiran and Tamattu'? First of all, let's explain the terms. Hajj means Hajj. Ifrad means alone, singular. That's what that means. So Hajj alone. Hajj Qiran from the word qaruna, which means to join together. Okay, means to be together. This means that a person is going to perform Hajj and Umrah with one ihram. So the Hajj is going to be performed and an Umrah, or it's going to count for an Umrah at least, and you're not going to come out of ihram. You stay in ihram. The third one is Tamattu'. Tamattu' means to enjoy. This means that you're going to perform Umrah and Hajj. However, you're going to have two ihrams. It means that you're going to perform the Umrah separately, and then you're going to perform the Hajj separately. So the Tamattu' differs from the Qiran in that the Hajj and Umrah for Tamattu' are performed individually. The Qiran, they're done together.
Jameel, Sheikh. SubhanAllah, we covered a lot in these few minutes over here, so I want to break things down a little bit so maybe we can understand a little bit more in detail. So in Hajj al-Qiran, we mentioned that we're performing both Hajj and Umrah together with one ihram.
Yeah.
So there's no cutting of the hair or taking off of the ihram. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So just one straight.
So yeah, I mean, bringing it down further, there's a link between how the Hajj al-Ifrad is performed to the Hajj al-Qiran. Essentially, it's the same rites. It's the same way you're going to do it, except with the Qiran, there is a sacrifice that is made. So the rites of how you perform Hajj Ifrad is the same as how you perform Hajj Qiran. But with the Hajj Qiran, we said that you also get the reward of an Umrah with it. But you have to make a sacrifice as well. With Hajj Ifrad, there is no sacrifice. The sacrifice means that you have a sheep, or you participate with a cow or a camel. There's no sacrifice for Hajj Ifrad. One ihram, perform Hajj and you're done. With Qiran, you're going to perform Hajj with the reward of an Umrah, and a sacrifice is made.
Because we didn't do Ifrad.
Not because we didn't, it's because at the end, at the beginning, when you make your intention, which we'll talk about later, how to perform or enter the state of Ihram, you'll make your intention. And your intention will determine the type of Hajj that you make, and then what is upon you, whether you make a sacrifice or not. With Tamattu', you perform Umrah in Mecca, of course. No other place you're going to perform Umrah. Then you come out of the state of Ihram. You finished your Umrah. Alhamdulillah, you trimmed or shaved your hair. Then you stay in Mecca, and when the days of Hajj begin, you then perform Hajj. So you have that kind of gap between performing the Umrah and the Hajj. That gap could be one day, it could be a month, depending on when you performed that particular Umrah.
Hence the name Tamattu'.
Yeah, you enjoy your time there.
Yes.
That's exactly right.
Jazakallah khair. So can we look at it as in terms of, for example, an express Hajj for those, for example, who don't have the time to do the Ifrad, for example, versus those who have time, they can come in, they do the Umrah and have that relaxation time, that Tamattu', the enjoyment of Mecca and the Haram, and then do the Hajj, or?
Yeah, well, It really depends when you're going to assume your ihram. If you're living in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and you have the kind of you have the liberty of entering your ihram just before Hajj starts, then that's something can be facilitated. It's easy for you to do that. However, if you're flying in from a different country, you will be required to enter a number of days, maybe a week or 10 days before Hajj actually starts. So that means if you're going to do ifrad, you need to remain in the state of ihram, your state of ihram, because you're performing ifrad. You're going to remain in the state of ihram for a week or 10 days, which is a little bit difficult. Okay, this is why most people who are flying in from abroad to come in to perform their Hajj, most of them perform tamattu. Because when they arrive, they can perform their umrah, they can then wear their normal clothes, and when it's time to perform Hajj, they enter the ihram for a second time for the Hajj, and they perform their Hajj. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's a quick way for those who are flying from a different country, because if you're flying from a different country, you need to arrive early. But for those who are living close to Mecca, yeah, maybe it's a quicker way, an easier way for them, and it's obviously there's no sacrifice for you, so there's no financial burden for you to have a sacrifice. So it really depends on the circumstance of the individual.
What about somebody who's like flying in like on the 7th day, or he doesn't necessarily not have any time to perform an umrah at that point? He has to go straight into.
Yeah. So as far as the logistics, the practicalities of that, people who are from abroad, I think there's a cut-off date.
Okay.
That you don't find there are flights flying in on the 7th, like literally the one day before Hajj starts. That the logistical situation doesn't permit that due to safety reasons and whatnot. I think the last time that you can fly in, it differs from each year, maybe is 4 or 5 days before Hajj actually starts. If you're within the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, it differs, because you can drive quite close to the place as long as you have permission to perform Hajj.
Of course.
Okay, and then you can enter Mecca to perform your Hajj. Yeah.
MashaAllah. Going back to Sheikhna, the Hajj al-Qiran, I'm sorry, Hajj al-Tamattu'. How long can somebody have that tamattu' phase? Can it be an hour or two, or can it be a day or two? Okay,
good. So this is going back to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, where al-Hajju ashhurun ma'lumat, that the Hajj are specific months. Now what are these months? Which are the months of Hajj? They are Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah, and the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. So let's say, for example, a person intends to make the Hajj and performs their Umrah in the month of Shawwal. So they perform their Umrah in the Shawwal, and they stay in Mecca. And mashallah, maybe 2 months later they're going to perform their Hajj. Here it could be 2 months between their Umrah and their Hajj. Those people who are maybe coming from the Americas, maybe coming from Africa, coming from Europe, they will arrive in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia maybe a week before Hajj starts. So they will perform their Umrah upon arrival. Most groups, some groups come earlier, some come later, but average. They will perform their Umrah, and maybe it's 5 or 6 or 7 days before their Hajj. So it really depends on when you perform your Umrah, as long as it's within Shawwal or Dhul Qa'dah, or the first 10 days, or the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah.
SubhanAllah. So it could be anywhere from 2 months to 2 days to 2 hours.
It could be, yeah. It could be as short as that, yeah.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. So after performing, Hajj al-Tamattu' or Hajj al-Ifrad, I mean, obviously, if it's Ifrad, you're done with your Hajj, or you're finishing off your Hajj at that point, correct?
That's right. There's nothing for you to do after that. I know there's a common question as to which one is better for me to do. What's more preferable? Should I do this one? Should I do that one? Or should I do that? Okay. This is a big discussion amongst the scholars. Even some of the companions radiallahu anhum saw the matter in a different way. Some of them said Ifrad is the best. Some of them said Qiran is the best, because that's what the Prophet ﷺ said did. And some of them say no, Tamattu' is best. And each of them have their understandings and evidences for everything. But what seems to be, based upon the evidences, there seems to be a fair justification to say it's not necessarily one that is the best, and Allah knows best. Those who travel with their sacrifice, they say, some of the scholars, that Qiran is best for you. Because that's what the Prophet ﷺ did. If you travel with your sacrifice, but this is something which is not many people do at the moment. You don't travel from the miqat and have the sheep in the back of the car or the bus. People don't do that anymore. So if you travel with your sacrifice, that's best for you. If you don't travel with your sacrifice, then what is better for you is tamattu', and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is best.